What a summer down under it's been for the Indian team in the Southern Hemisphere. Of course, it started in Australia, it's gone on to New Zealand, and fresh off a one-day series victory, still at the same venue. We changed formats to the T20 format. 3 T20 internationals starting at the Westpac Stadium, the Cape Tin in Wellington, and the men will have to follow up on a rather disappointing result for the women. We'll come to that in a minute, but let me quickly say a big hello to our guests in the studio, Zaheer Khan and Harsha Bhogle. Just a few days ago, we were talking about this solidarity, almost in jest, about the men and the women winning together, then losing together. Today, we hope that they just don't take a leaf out of their book, because it was such a wonderful start that they kind of threw away.
You know, I had come to record something, and when I came to record something, it was 100-something for one. And Smriti Mandhana was batting like only Smriti Mandhana can bat. She was fooling around with the bowling. And then I come back from my recording in India, I've lost, I couldn't believe it. But then we don't like playing circuit breakers in T20 cricket, right? Mithali is too old, she shouldn't be playing, all that nonsense.
Yeah, there it is, 159 for 4. It was a good push. Sophie Devine batted brilliantly for 62 of 48, and they got a good push at the end. Katie Martin, 27 of 14, gave them the push to get to 159, which they felt was par. But the way Smriti Mandhana was batting, as Harsha said, toying with the bowling, she looked as if they could finish it with overs to spare. Quick word from you, Zaheer, about Mithali Raj. She's in that 15, sitting in the dugout and not making the 11. Perfectly set up for someone like her today.
Well, different format, and that's something which you've seen with many countries, many cricket-playing nations, that T20 format is for youngsters now. You know, it's about passing the baton on, and that's something which you've seen with the women's team as well. But nonetheless, again, it shows the importance of wickets, isn't it? Importance of wickets and partnerships. So it doesn't matter what format you're playing. I think the focus is always. Bowling team focus on taking wickets, and batting team focus on partnerships, building those partnerships.
So I see you're leaning towards the fact that, yeah, maybe it's all right to have left her out, but we won't dwell on that for the moment.
It's all right. My feeling is that largely you're a team of 10, and you have her in the side. If you're suddenly losing wickets and you need to bat out the 20 overs alongside a Harmanpreet or someone who's scoring, that's okay. But to say that she's got no place. Anyway, that's.
We'll leave that for the moment.
We move on.
Yeah, unfortunate that the Indian team couldn't get over the line. The men walked into the basin, not the Basin Reserve, the Westpac. Somehow old Wellingtonians will be used to calling it the Basin Reserve no matter what. The Westpac Stadium down the road from there. But
you just called yourself Old Wellingtonian.
Yeah, I just did.
Old Wellingtonian.
Yes, okay. We're all used to that big traffic island.
Yes.
But let's quickly get an update on India's playing 11. Remember, India have won the toss and decided to bowl first, which is what Kane Williamson also wanted to do. And talking about the newcomers coming into the squad, so not necessarily looking at changes from the ODI, but the fact that you've got a fresh squad. Krunal Pandya, Rishabh Pant, fresh off the flight. The only person who was on the flight not playing there, Siddharth Kaul. So otherwise, everybody else has been part of that 50-over setup.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice playing Vijay Shankar. Clearly, they've been very impressed by what he's done in the past. So they're playing Vijay Shankar in there. No Kedar Jadhav. I think he's in the squad, but he's not been picked for this one. The two names to watch out there are Rishabh Pant at 3, and the fact that they're staying with Dinesh Karthik in T20 at number 5. So there's an opportunity for him, though I wouldn't read too much into what you do in T20 cricket for picking an ODI side. Krunal Pandya comes back, so India batting really deep today, so they can go hard. I think Krunal Pandya can actually bat in the top 6 as well.
Yeah. Zaheer, you're very familiar with these two brothers. Of course, it's a little record that they've put in the books. I think it's the 7th brother duo to play together. But they've got
7th Indian, right? If I'm not mistaken, 7th Indian duo. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right.
In internationals, yeah, okay.
But Kunal has got great potential. You know, he's improved as a bowler. He started off as batting all-rounder. Pretty much with his bowling arsenal, he pretty much had that, you know, darting into the right-hander and going away to that bowling those Yorkers close to that wide line. But he's evolved from there. You know, now if you look Kunal bowl, he will look to vary his pace. You know, he'll look to vary his lengths as well. So that's been a big change as far as Kunal's cricketing acumens are concerned. Certainly has got the ability to be floater. You know, even though he's looking at number 6 spot on that batting list, you know, you might see him play that floating role as well in the the side, because he's got capabilities of batting at number 4 as well.
That was going to be my next question.
Hardik's down at 8. Hardik's down at 8 on that list.
Yes.
I actually think he's good enough to bat 5-6. I think in T20 he's good enough to bat at 5. I'd be surprised if he doesn't bat 5 for Mumbai Indians in the IPL. But down at 8, that means you're using him as a 7, 8, 10 ball batsman.
You're going to be deciding that batting order?
Not
No,
really.
he'll only decide whether he's good enough to bowl 4 overs.
No,
Yes.
but there are plenty of options in this side. I mean,
Yes.
this T20 side, if you look at the options available, it's pretty much interesting. Also suggestive of the fact that they're covering all the bases. Like even though you have Hardik and Vijay Shankar playing together, you still have 2 spinners. Yes, Kuldeep is missing out today, but Chahal and Kunal will provide that spin option as well. So as a captain, you always in that comfort zone. You are secured by anything which is thrown at you in the middle.
One thing's for sure, we had a look. I mean, we've just put a provisional batting order out there, but it's pretty certain one member of that Pandya family is going to be up there in the top 4 or 5. But somebody else who's going to be needing to make an impression is Rishabh Pant, fresh off a flight from India, and we've talked all about #MyWorldCup squad, and one of the spots up for grabs has always been the talking point about Rishabh Pant. He couldn't get the 50 over opportunity. He needs to take this one and make it count.
He does, except that, as I mentioned earlier today, even if you play 40 balls is a long innings in T20 cricket, but it's a short innings in 50 overs cricket. So I don't know how much you can read into that, because you play very differently in T20 cricket. He's only batted twice in one-day internationals, so he's very, very short on experience. My gut feel is, based to some extent on what happens here, Rishabh Pant will play all 5 one-days against Australia. And I think at the end of that, we'll do our My World Cup exercise again, because we'll know that there'll be no more one-days to play. Yeah. So I'll be surprised if he's not playing all 5 of those one-days.
Fair enough. We've got.
That's assuming they're taking him seriously, and that it's not just a talking point.
Certainly, we certainly have been talking a lot about him, but it's not only here in the studio. Even centre stage, Rishabh Pant's got everyone talking. For now, we just need one person talking, and that's our man on the spot, Simon Dool, on Rishabh Pant.
I know Rishabh Pant has become the Indian Test match keeper, which he was in Australia. He's exciting, but I think the T20 game really suits him down to the ground. I love his aggression with the bat, behind the stumps, everything. He competed with the Australians really well, so I love that about Rishabh Pant. And he wants to take the game on, which is just basically the young breed of Indian cricketer. That's exactly what they want to do.
Yes, well, that's Simon Dool's thoughts on Rishabh Pant. But I think the replication between his form in one format versus another, many people didn't even expect him to be playing Test match cricket, but he's gone and shown that he can play out there. And these are his figures in T20 internationals and in the IPL. Now, that's going to be another factor.
Chalk and cheese, isn't it?
It is.
Chalk and cheese. I think he's more at home in the IPL. I saw him play in a T20 in the West Indies, and he looked a little lost, because it was slowish track, he wasn't able to clear the infield. But those T20I numbers are going to change very soon. He's far too good a player to have those kind of numbers. It's just starting trouble.
When he says lost, I mean, the one thing you need to give Rishabh Pant is a clear role, not behind the stumps, in front of the stumps. When he's got bat in hand, do you think he really needs that clear role to be told, this is where you're going to bat, this is what you need to do? Or because he doesn't want to really be a floater, does he?
See, the fact that he's been playing Test matches regularly now, has going to definitely change those numbers. These numbers, most of these numbers are pre those Test matches which he has played. So once you are at the highest level, all those butterflies, all those question marks which go in your head, the doubt in your abilities, those have gone, and he has proved that with those 200s which he has scored in overseas conditions. And as far as Indian batsmen are concerned, we always like to judge them what they do in overseas conditions, and it's like stamp of authority that, okay, if you've done well in abroad, then you have a better chance of success at the highest level, because that's where usually the tough questions have been asked with regard to those bouncers, with regard to your testing those techniques, because usually Indian players will be good at spin. And the fast bowling is always a question mark. So in Rishabh's case, the India IPL numbers and the matches which he has played in India are suggestive of the fact that he's very comfortable in home conditions. He has proved it abroad as well. So that is something which puts him in that category of providing that X factor. You know, in English conditions, maybe he can prove to be a very handy customer in that lower middle order slot.
I was about to ask you that. Do you see him as being a top order 1-2-3 kind of player, or do you see him as a 5-6 kind of player? In T20 cricket, it doesn't matter, he can bat at but suppose you want to consider him seriously for a 50-over slot. Do you see him as an alternative to Kohli at 3, allowing Kohli to bat 4 some days, or as an alternative something happens to Kohli, or do you see him as a 5-6 batsman?
I see him as a 5-6 batsman at the moment in this lineup. You know, to provide that power at the back end of the innings. And if you look at the last couple of years' numbers, you know that one gap which all the experts have been talking about is that spot where, you know, you have lost early wickets. Can you come back in the game? You know, and if you have the power, if you keep wickets in hand even after losing wickets at the top, somehow, you know, get to a scenario and situation where you can put pressure on bowling. Who is your guy who is going to create that kind of impact? So you talk about Hardik from that point of view. You've seen it in the last match as well, where he's scored runs at the strike rate of 200. Who else is there? You know, so only name which comes to my mind, and at the moment in the scheme of things, is Rishabh Pant. And that's where I feel Dinesh Karthik is going to be limited to a certain extent, because you need the game to be close to finish when Dinesh is in. You know, so you need a very solid platform for Dinesh to capitalize on it. You've seen it with Raidu, that he's proved it, that he can take the game to the opposition. He can create that impact in the middle overs. But what about those last 15 overs? You know, you need ability of that person to hit sixes consistently and put pressure on the bowling lineup, where I feel that maybe in comparison to Dinesh Karthik, Rishabh has that edge.
But there's something else you said that's just given me a thought. You're talking about Indians playing in India versus Indians playing overseas. It's a topic after your heart, but it's also a topic that has been much talked about in New Zealand, because we had an exclusive interview of Ravi Shastri to Cricbuzz, and there's a lot that he said, but we've just decided to pick a few little precious nuggets from him. And this was one of them, when I said this is the best travelling team in the world across all formats, they laughed. Today they know I wasn't speaking French. Now, a lot of things I know about Ravi Shastri, I'm not sure about his ability to speak French.
Yeah, but the Français, they also talk a little bit of sense, eh?
Oui, they do.
Un tout petit peu, but a little bit of sense.
Parlez-vous français, Zaheer? Yeah.
Indeed.
Indeed, very good. Well, Ravi for sure.
Très bien.
Ravi for sure speaks better English than French, but it's the words that really matter. Talking about being the best travelling team he's felt. And I know that numbers can suggest one thing, but you've got to put numbers into perspective. So let's have a look at these numbers we've put down. This is India's overseas record since 2018. And across formats we're looking at, the test match format, 33.33%. Just to put in context, if you look at previous times, it's been far lower, except one little period in 2006 to 2008. And I think you had a point of view on that, Zaheer.
Well, first of all, when you look at Indian cricket, you know, you talk about decades, you talk about heroes, you talk about people who have given that inspiration and the platform for the next squad to build from there. You know, that's something which is very evident. So if you see the numbers in the larger scheme of things, then that graph is always going higher, and that's something which probably started. I can talk about since the time I started with my journey with the Indian team, and that was from 2000. You know, so the main focus was about winning those overseas matches and overseas tournaments, tours, and limited overs as well. So that focus, that goal has been set through that period, and the success of that is seen over the years, over the last 2 decades, now 19 years almost. If you see, that percentage has always been going higher and higher. I think what is the test match numbers also suggestive. If you're just purely talking numbers, then that there is not much of a difference, because if I go back to 6, 7, 8 season, you know, the win percentage was and this is Sena countries. If you count West Indies in
it
this,
gets up even higher.
Probably the test match numbers will go higher. In terms of white ball cricket, T20 was pretty much non-existent till that point. You know, since 2007 the format has really picked up. So those numbers are irrelevant to this debate.
Completely, yeah.
As far as white ball cricket ODIs are concerned, I think there has been a serious improvement, on that front, and mainly it was the factor of the two wrist spinners which have been come into play. They've been creating that scenario in the middle overs, putting pressure on the opponents, and those numbers also, if you put it into context, will tell a story. So when you're talking about all these numbers and comparative, I think it's always a hard debate to go on. And I mean, we can keep discussing about it and it will never end.
Exactly, until we all learn French fluently. But I mean,
Right.
Ravi is someone who's known to speak his mind, whether it's upstairs in the commentary box, downstairs in the dugout. Your take on this?
No, I completely accept what Zaheer is saying, that one generation learns from another generation. Till the early 2000s, India assumed they were going to lose when they went overseas. Well, I mean, that's too strong a statement, but they thought they were going to lose when they went overseas. The mindset had to change, so you started winning test matches, if not series. You started winning test matches. You won test matches in Australia, you won test matches in South Africa, you won a series in England, and those are mighty fine teams. I know 2003-04 there was no McGrath, there was no Vaughan, but it was an outstanding batting side that you dismantled in one of the test matches. South Africa 2006-07 was an excellent side, but the mindset started to change. So the subsequent teams then say, yes, we can win. So my only concern is we shouldn't say this era is better than another era, because it's all Indian teams. And one generation learns from another, because then people start to say, okay, how strong was the Australian team then? How strong was the England team then? What kind of South Africa were we playing? And that leads to divisive arguments.
Yeah.
Because we don't want divisive arguments. So what I like is Ravi is very proud of the team that him and Virat are taking, and that is how it should be. You should be very proud of what you're doing. But I would hesitate to say this team better than other teams. What he's saying across formats is true. This Indian one-day team is something very, very special. So I buy the argument about across teams, but I won't worry too much about this generation versus another generation.
Well, let's get one more quote in there. Of course, if you want to read the entire interview, it's all on the Cricbuzz site. But this is another bit that we're talking about. This is Kuldeep Yadav, our frontline overseas spinner. The way he bowled in Sydney becomes our #1 spinner in overseas Test cricket. Going ahead, if we have to play one spinner, he is the one we will pick. That's a strong statement to make.
It is, but I like the fact that he said in overseas Test cricket. In overseas Test cricket, you're going to play 3 seamers, and we now have 3 quality seamers to play. So you want a wicket-taking spinner, you play Kuldeep, but the quick bowlers now are so good, they're doing their job. So I don't mind that being true, even though the sample size is still very small. He's done well in 1 Test match. He had 1 Test match at Lord's, which was the wrong Test match for him to play. He's done well in 1 Test match. So he's a wonderful bowler, everything true, but we still have a small sample size to pick from. By the same reckoning, Ashwin bowled beautifully in Birmingham, and he bowled beautifully in Adelaide. So he had 2 very good Test matches as well. When someone's taken 340 wickets, you don't say goodbye that soon. I still think Ashwin is your #1 spinner by a long distance when you play in subcontinent conditions. That's why I think we need to focus on the fact that he said in overseas conditions. In Indian conditions, I think Ashwin is your #1 spinner by a long margin. But I have a lot of time for Kuldeep. I really think he's tomorrow's cricketer.
Another discussion that we'll keep going as things go on. Let's try and get back to what's happening today at Wellington. We've shown you the Indian playing 11, a few new faces in the New Zealand lineup. And one of them coming in the middle order day is Darrell Mitchell making his debut. His father was a renowned rugby coach for the All Blacks, took them to a World Cup semi-final, John Mitchell. So Darrell Mitchell gets some good pedigree coming in there in the middle order. Scott Kuggeleijn won a match for them in a good partnership with Doug Bracewell not too long ago against Sri Lanka. And in terms of the bowling, finally, there's a familiar name, Tim Southee gets in.
Tim Southee finally gets a game. So Ferguson, Southee, 2 quicks. Then Mitchell bowls at the death, doesn't he, in their domestic cricket. Then you got a bit of Colin de Grandon, a bit of Scott Kuggeleijn. Then Mitch Santner and Ish Sodhi as your spinner. I thought Williamson might open the batting, actually.
He will be. I think there was a statement as well
I think
hinting at that. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much in the Virat Kohli mold, the possibility of opening in a T20 if required. But will the loss of Guptill be that big an impact? Because they certainly have felt it in the ODIs.
Well, he was not really created that kind of impact in the series.
Not in terms of form.
So yeah, so in terms of form, I think won't be that much. What the one person who I'm looking forward to is Colin Monroe. He's someone who has been getting opportunities, and it's very important from New Zealand's point of view that he provides that platform. That impact at the top is very important. Be it this series or when we talk about the World Cup as well. Kugalayan is someone who's batting all rounder. I'm looking forward to see him.
And just to add to what you were saying, again, the importance of New Zealand's top three. 59.49% scored by the top three in T20 internationals. And
I've got a theory on those numbers. You play 7 batsmen, okay? Your top 5 have to score runs, but you play largely 7 batsmen in T20 cricket. Your top 3 are going to play more than half the overs, or certainly they should. So top 3 should score more than half the runs anyway. So I look at those numbers and say 60% and the numbers look wow, but I think that is what top 3 should be. Because when you come down to 4, 5, 6, it's not always that 4, 5, 6 has a lot of time. Number 7 on an average plays 7, 8 balls in a T20 game. So your top 3 should deliver more than 50% of the runs in T20 anyway. So that those are good numbers. Those are only slightly above what they should be.
And second only to India. I mean, we know India's dominance in terms of the top 3. But yeah, I think you'll have to look at the numbers behind the numbers to see, yes, the top 3 are scoring, but how often, when they score X number of runs, are they winning games?
I think that's the benchmark. That's the benchmark of playing T20 format. If any team not doing well in T20 format, they will look at these numbers. They'll say that, okay, top 3 has to score runs. You have to make use of that first power play. And if those numbers are not above 50% runs scored by top 3, you'll always be ending up below par, or you'll be banking too much on your lower middle order to deliver. And that's something in this format you've seen that there's hardly any time. It's not the lower order batsmen or low middle order batsmen don't have the luxury of setting in, and then in a ODI format, often we see that, like even if there is 2-3 wickets fallen up front, you will see a big partnership, the partnership which is probably happened at 4.5 runs per over. In this format, you're always thinking of that 160, 170 run mark.
I mean, if you're playing 7 batsmen, that's about 13.5, 14% of the run should come from each batsman if you're playing 7. So the top 3 should give you 17% of the runs anyway. That's about 52%.
Yeah.
The rest give you 10%. So say, I'm just working out numbers, 4, 5, 6, 7 give you 10% of the runs. That's 92% of the runs. So your top 3 have to give you 50% of the runs.
Yeah. It's another aspect of the game, just to conclude Cricbuzz Live here. When you talk about pitch reports, there are some stalwarts in the world who never really believed in them. Someone like Kumar Sangakkara comes to mind. Every time you asked him about a surface, he says, I'm not going to comment on it until I go out there and play. This time around, as far as our predictions are concerned, we've had a live 40-over pitch report thanks to a different game being played on the same surface on the same day.
Is we kind of know. Yeah. But is it also the same surface they played the first one? The last one day on,
yeah.
Right?
Same pitch as 5th ODI Wellington. Same pitch as what the women played literally half an hour ago.
Because Simon Dool did the pitch report and he said the divots have all gone with the rolling and this is now a far better surface to bat on.
So just to put it into context, how much of an impact will the surface have having been played on for 40 overs, and therefore your prediction based on that for a score for New Zealand?
Not much, I think, because the fact that there was one game played, so the wicket has rolled twice already. So in fact, if at all, the wicket will be getting better and better with that constant rolling. Otherwise, you have just the sessions of 2 rolling for 7 minutes done in between the innings. So that's something which actually make things better for batsmen. And if in these conditions you've seen over the past that as you play more on a surface, it starts getting easier and easier for batting, and that much difficult. So keeping that in mind, I think anything around 160, 165 should be a good total.
So what's your number then?
162.
162.
Hey, let's have some fun. The women won with 159,
yes.
Right? But India were 100 and odd for 1. So I'll go a little more, 170.
170. I'm sticking on the lower side. I'm going for my whole solidarity theory. It's not only India. I'm going for exactly the same number as Susie Bates and company made, which is 159 for Kane Williamson and company, having been put into bat.
159, 160?
162.
162.
162.
Okay.
Close enough. All right. we just have one thing left on the show. Yes, it's Mr. Volleyball, Joy Bhattacharya, who still remembers a little bit of cricket to be able to send in his.
I saw him the other day. I saw him the other day on that new program that Danish is doing.
Yeah, briefly. He was quietened down by Danish there. All right. Of all the players in the ODI squads for the recent New Zealand-India series, which player had the maximum gap between making his first class and senior international debut? And we've seen a few of those happening in international cricket. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live. Get your answers in, because we don't want a monopoly of answers like we've had in the one-day series.
Senior, the clue there. We're doing his first-class debut and senior international debut. Is maybe, I don't know.
All right. No more hints for the
ODI,
moment.
ODI is also another clue there.
Yeah, maybe.
All right.
Okay.
I'm sure we've already had about 5 answers before the question's even gone out. So we'll start you out easy, and I can promise you a couple of toughies. Not Darrell, a couple of toughies coming up in the next 2 T20 internationals. Well, the stage is all set for India and New Zealand to go out there. New Zealand will be batting first, having lost the toss, and they'll be trying to put right what's happened in the ODI series. India will be continuing their preparation for that big World Cup, even though the format has changed. Lots of individual performances to look at. Cricbuzz Live will be back with Cricbuzz Combox halfway through this innings, and we'll see you in the mid-innings.